And we are back with more Factorio. Here we go. I am Pax. And today we are going to do a quick little base tour of our Pyanadon alternative energy base. And so, yes, we've been playing the full Pi suite here, and we are starting off here in our starter region with our starter copper and iron and native flora there. There's our original stone mine and our coal patch. So this was like the beginning of our early base here, and we mined our resources and built some one resource mining operations here to feed our first base. Yes. And we brought back the sushi belts. Hey, hey. So a lot of the theme of the Pyanadon base here has been to use sushi belts, and there is sort of a nice situation with Pyanodons to do this because, well, you're given these mechanical inserters, which are nice because they don't require any electricity, but they're very slow. But in Pyanodon, you often have to have many, many items, but very low throughput. And that actually is a pretty good situation for a sushi belt. And so we've been relying on this inserter mechanism to make the sushi belt here, where basically one inserter pulls off from the sushi belt and one of them puts on, and this will essentially keep a pretty constant flow of items onto the belt without overfilling it. And you just have to always make sure that the production of the item here is fed side-loaded onto this recycling belt, and that way the items being pulled off the sushi belt will have priority over new items. And so that the way the production will back up, and then, you know, everything acts nice and normal. Then typically I've been enjoying having an extra extra inserter here to back up in case this one misses an item. And if we have a situation with more throughput, like the small parts here, then we can use more inserters actually and kind of double the throughput there. So that was our early starter base and mall, and we got our automation science up and running and automated here, and began to build out the base. And of course, a big gimmick in the early game of Pyanodons, or throughout the game really, is that all these buildings, all these miners, furnaces, the assembling machines, they all require fuel. And you can use this raw coal as fuel, but the thing is that every raw coal produces an ash. And so essentially you have to figure out how to deal with ash. So at first we just stashed it in boxes, but eventually we started building these ash recycling systems. And so pretty early on we went down here and built a pretty big power plant, which is now mostly dedicated towards steam, but this is basically 4 lanes of this raw coal getting turned into steam and electricity. And we built over here a big ash processing facility that can turn all this ash into some more useful plates, but it's very low throughput, so that's been pretty helpful though, honestly. But this does take up a lot of electricity. And then, as you can see, we also have a couple of mods beyond the standard Pyanadon mod pack that have been helping us. For one, we have our companion drones here that have been tremendous help. These are just basically overpowered construction bots that we get from the start of the game, and we've had them the entire time. It's been great. Then another mod we've been using a lot is the water wells. So this gives us free water, just a building for free water, which is pretty nice because so many things need water, and just wanted to avoid so much spaghetti. And I've seen other Pyanodon bases, and there's just so much belt and pipe spaghetti to get it started and go through this early phase that I also installed this transport drone mod. So these are the transport drones, and I have another mod that makes them pretty cheap and allows you to have them pretty early and uses steam to power them, steam transport drones. And so we started off with these transport drone networks, and also really just to reduce the amount of spaghetti you have to build in the beginning of Pyanodons. And it's probably saved us a little bit of time, but nothing too drastic. And it just made the base just so much nicer and cleaner, and Then, of course, the first major goal to get up and started in Pyanadons after you get automation science going is to build simple circuits, of course, yes. What is pretty much the first thing you build in normal Factorio. It takes about, well, we did it in about 7 hours, which is pretty fast. I think a typical playthrough takes 16 to 20 hours. And you have to synthesize some organisms. So there's a lot of the alien life mod where we have to create these different types of organisms. And so these mushrooms called moondrops here were the first type of organism we actually had to synthesize. Some of them, like seaweed and sap and trees even, you can kind of get started from picking things up in the environment, moss, and but the moondrops are kind of the first thing you make that's part of this genetic engineering system that is part of alien life. And so then, yeah, we have to make these moondrops. We have to make all sorts of other intermediate products to eventually get to simple circuits. And here again, we used the sushi belt design. So we have another system for just importing all the resources and spreading them out on the sushi belt. So of course, the advantage of the sushi belt is that you can put a lot of different variety of items onto the belt. But it needs to be in a situation where there's pretty low throughput, and a lot of the same items are going different places, as well as you only have a few buildings of production that are accessing the sushi belt as well. So typically this situation comes up a lot though in the Pyanadons mod. So we've been taking advantage of it, and it's just been kind of fun to play with, and it looks pretty cool. And and this circuitless sushi belt design that uses the inserters it's actually been really robust, and so I've been having a good time making it. And then once you get your simple circuits done, you want to work towards your PyScience 2, or your original PyScience, just regular PyScience here, the first PyScience pack. And the main issue here is actually this chain that involves this glassware. So of course we have to build glass, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, at least different resources, I guess 12, 11, 12, 13 different resources that we've mined. That's not even including like making logs or making sap, or making seaweed. So there's so many basic resources that you just have to go around and get all those things kind of getting produced. And a lot of the mines also even require like some fluids, so you have to make acetylene and the aromatics here to even get started with the lead and zinc, and it's a very complicated system, of course. But then this chain of glass requires then this chain for rubber stoppers, which then requires the latex over here. And most of the stuff for latex is pretty straightforward, but then except for this formic acid thing, which comes from one of the alien life animals. So this is then one of our first alien life animals, the Brauks. And yeah, these guys were just very challenging to get this up and running and started, but then this is like kind of the first actual animal you genetically engineer. And we also then built a sushi belt for them. So again, we are just providing all the materials for these builds on a sushi belt, where we add the moss, we add the barrels, we add all the brown cocoons and the flowers onto the sushi belt and get it going. And so once you have Brauks, you can then slaughter them and make the latex here. And so one of the main gimmicks of Pyanadons too is really just to deal with byproducts. So of course throughout the game, every recipe often has multiple byproducts, and so like ash being one of the byproducts. Then of course when we slaughter the Brauks, there's all these body parts that come out as byproducts, and so a lot of the challenge is really just making sure you can deal with all the byproducts that are produced with all the different recipes. And a lot of times you just kind of throw them away, and but it's good if you can maybe recycle them or put them on the network. So like here, this chain for making glass has some stone as a byproduct. So first we do something like put the stone onto our network and provide it in case anything needs it. But if not, we are going to turn the stone into this saline water here. And then we put that onto the network in case anything wants it. And then we have a few buildings that will actually void some things. So there's a sinkhole that will void fluids, and there's a gas vent that will void some gases. And you can then also void solid fuels by essentially turning them into steam. But then you might want to use that steam for a little bit of electricity first or something, or put it onto your transport drone network. And then you void the steam with the gas vent. And it wasn't until recently that we were able to also start voiding other things like ash directly. So after you get the PyScience, you unlock the burner here, and the burner will let you void the rest of the solid objects. So we had no way of really voiding any solid objects until we unlocked the burners over here. And also PyScience unlocked these oil burners, which has been really useful for generating electricity. So yeah, we came out here over to the west a bit and started using this giant coal mine out here to make us some coke and make us some hot air, and we can use this fluid to make some more electricity before we actually just burn it all off, because yeah, we don't want the coke to stop, we don't want the hot air to stop, so we have to either void this fluid or make it into electricity first. And so that's a lot of the challenge, is just building systems where you can get the byproducts and void them or turn them into something useful and void something else downstream, and just make sure that everything keeps going. But it is very kind of important strategically to also put these byproducts on the network and make use of them as you can. Yes, and then we were working our way through the PyScience, and one of the first stops then is to get the intermetallics. So this requires another bunch of metals, new resources like the antimony down here, and the nickel just needed a tiny amount of that stuff, and of course the duralumin, and we put it all together in one more sushi belt design. Here we have, like, this is probably one of the most complicated ones we've built so far. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 different items on the sushi belt over here. Pretty cool. And so all this stuff is being fed around to produce the intermetallics here, and then you have to build these shafts. The shafts are a huge bottleneck, and then you need shafts and brakes and gearboxes need shafts to just even get started with locomotives. So this was how we essentially developed our infrastructure, start building the trains. And over here we have our train rail network building system here. And another thing about Pyanadons is, yes, indeed, the infrastructure is extremely expensive compared to, normal Factorio. So we have been really struggling keeping up with doing enough science and building the buildings that we need to expand, and so on and on it goes. And yes, definitely get more iron. Iron has always been the bottleneck. So yeah, eventually we scaled up to this big old iron build out here, where we're building something that looks almost close to kind of conventional Factorio with these furnace stacks here. And but we have to first process the raw iron into this processed iron, and of course it produces stone as a byproduct. And we use the stone to make some stone bricks, but put all that stuff onto the network, and if it starts backing up, we'll burn it off. Then we collect all the iron and put it onto the network, and this whole giant thing is only 10 iron per second, just this whole thing. So the production rate is way lower than normal Factorio, and you need so much iron for everything. Of course, with steel and copper here, we scaled that up a bit. And then as we were finally getting close to getting to the logistic science, we have to do a couple more things, which is to build some more advanced technology to do more genetic engineering. And so here is another sushi belt design that helps us build these plasmids and helps us build zognobacteria, as well as this cDNA. And so all of this, and I guess the lab instruments even, And so all of this is useful in genetically engineering some of the more advanced organisms that we've designed, like the algs here and the cotton guts and these Relecia flowers. So all of these things are needed to get to then the logistic science over here. And so we just got it up and running in the last episode, and it still kind of needs some work to fully ramp up. We are still just trying to get the mice over here fully ramped up. I need to stick some more modules in there, but then I think this will eventually be cranking out 8 logistic sciences per minute. Very nice, very nice. And then yeah, another big step towards the logistic science was to make batteries. And so the trick about batteries is also then you need this chain based on urea, and then the urea comes from the Zognobacteria as well as this manure. And so we needed to make these algs to make all this manure for us, to make urea, to make batteries. On and on it goes. And so yeah, that's definitely the beauty of Pyanadons. Just has these amazing complicated chains and just all the challenges of dealing with the byproducts and trying to make these builds that are effective and that don't just completely waste the byproducts. And so we have another power plant out to the east, and then here's our 10 mine and 10 processing. We've upgraded a couple times. We got titanium as well. Yep. Cool. I think then last thing maybe is our stone processing facility. Yeah, and then the thing about stone is actually that every stone also produces this other byproduct called kerogen. So if you're going to mine stone, you actually have to deal with this kerogen, and you can use it as fuel at the beginning, which is a pretty nice way to get rid of it. But now we can actually turn it into some oil fluids and have some pretty nice oils here that we can provide to the network, or at least just turn them into steam and turn that into electricity. And at worst, vent it, just because we've got to keep the mine running, keep the stone running, and really vice versa. So if I do want all these fluids, so we need to get rid of the stone, and so one way of also essentially voiding stone is to turn it into landfill. So landfill stacks to 1,000 here, and it takes like a bunch of stone to make a single landfill. So this is another good way of just voiding stone. And yeah, and then we finally made our way to logistic science, and we've just now started building out the train network. And right now there are no trains running, but I just am using it to get around, but just setting up our new design for the train network. So as we continue here with the playthrough, then we will be starting to really utilize the train network finally and get things onto trains and use the trains, and it's very exciting. And so I'll also be using the logistic train network mod throughout the playthrough here, which allows you to do a lot more advanced things with the train networks. But the downside is that they require a bit more. They're kind of expensive in Pyanadons to make the logistic train network stops and all the combinators. Every combinator requires a battery, and our battery production is so low that it's actually relatively expensive to even build a train station. So we'll see how that goes though. And so we'll be restarting the playthrough here coming up, but just wanted to have another quick little base tour since we've achieved our goal of logistic science. And so yeah, this has been basically a speed run as well, and so we're going to keep trying to push through the game really quickly. And we had some achievements of getting the circuits in about 7 hours, and I believe it took us only 23 hours and 20 minutes or so to get to logistic science, and hopefully we'll be able to carry on and reach some of the other science packs in rapid time and continue with this speedrun style as well. So cool, yeah. But then we'll call our little base store here. There you go, Factorio. I am Pax. See ya next time.